we do have details also on Washington.
Yeah, so
the gun bill that passed
in terms
last
of Washington's response, to my surprise, they actually look like today they are set to overcome a Republican filibuster to push forward with this bipartisan gun bill. Go ahead and put this up on the screen. We've got bipartisan, this from the New York Times, bipartisan gun bill clears initial vote in the Senate. The 64-34 vote came just hours after Republicans and Democrats released the text of the legislation, which could become the most significant overhaul of the nation's gun laws in decades. Now listen, there's not a whole lot here, but it is something, okay? So let me read to you the details of what's in this 80-page bill, which again is expected to overcome filibuster today because you've got somewhere around 14 Republicans who are supporting it. So the 80-page bill would enhance background checks. Specifically, they would give authorities up to 10 business days to review the juvenile and mental health records of gun purchases younger than 21. So they're not being banned, but they are subjected to a more extensive background check review. It would direct millions toward helping states implement so-called red flag laws. So not a national red flag law, but if your state wants to implement a red flag law, the government will give you some money to help you with that. And just as a reminder, the way they describe that here is it allows, red flag laws allow authorities to temporarily confiscate guns from people deemed dangerous as well as other intervention programs. Okay. Would also, for the first time, make sure that serious dating partners are included in a federal law that bars domestic abusers from purchasing firearms, a longtime priority that has eluded gun safety advocates for years. I actually think that in the juvenile background check piece, probably the most significant changes here in terms of reducing the number of deaths by guns in this country. You also have millions of dollars for expanding mental health resources. I read through the specifics. It's not that much money. It's not a game-changing amount whatsoever for the mental health piece. It looks like a bit of a, kind of a throwaway sort of a situation. And the legislation would also toughen penalties for those evading licensing requirements or making illegal straw purchases, buying and then selling weapons to people barred from purchasing handguns. Depends on how that's implemented. That could make a difference because we do know that an overwhelming number of guns that are used in violent crime come from a relatively small number of gun dealers. So that's basically it. Again, to the point of the mental health piece, just to give you the specifics so you can judge for yourself whether this is significant or not. They're going to provide $60 million over 5 years to provide mental health and behavioral training for primary care clinicians, $150 million to support the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, $240 million over 4 years for Project Aware, program that focuses on mental health support for school children, and $28 million set aside for trauma care in schools. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, we got billions for Ukraine, though, apparently.
Yeah, right. And $60 million over 5 years for mental health and behavioral training. Okay.
Yeah.
So there, as I said, were, I think, 14 Republicans,
yes.
14 or 15, that support this bill.
Well, they supported closure. I don't know if they're on record saying that they're willing to vote for the bill yet. It's
okay.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell is supporting it, right. And notably, John Cornyn from the state of Texas has also not only supported but was involved in the negotiations. He is getting hit by Trump for that.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. Trump blasts Rhino John Cornyn for new gun bill with all caps alarm. Take your guns away. So here's Trump's take, his truth on Truth Social. Quote, the deal on gun control, which he puts in quotes for some reason, currently being structured and pushed in the Senate by the radical left Democrats with the help of Mitch McConnell, Rhino Senator John Cornyn of Texas, and others, will go down in history as the first step in the movement to take your guns away, in all caps. Republicans, be careful what you wish for. So he's trying to make Cornyn pay over this. I mean, ultimately, it's very limited what this bill actually does. But, I've said from the beginning, I think it's important that they at least do something to show that our nation is capable of responding to a mass tragedy. Every single one of these provisions in this bill, I mean, you're talking about things that are overwhelmingly popular. I can't imagine that there's a single one of these items that polls under 75%. They're probably more in the 80s to 90s zone. So overwhelmingly popular. They actually, looks like, are going to get something passed. There's more Republican opposition in the House, but Democrats have the majority there. So looks like this is going to happen.
Yeah, I think the net of the effect, frankly, is not that bad, even though a lot of Republicans are coming out against it. Here's the truth. No red state is going to pass a red flag law, whether they get funding for it or not. So if you live in a red state, you're not going to have a red flag law. If you live in a blue or a purplish state, like I do in Virginia, well, we already have a red flag law. Same in Florida.
Florida
And,
actually passed one.
Well, they passed one in response to
Parkland.
Parkland, is what I'm saying. I'm saying under the current system, I don't see any new red flag laws going into place. So I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, at the end of the day, these are state-by-state decisions. They're up to the state legislatures and to the governors. This is just providing federal funding. I frankly would have loved to have seen a lot more funding towards the mental health aspect. I think that would have been the single most and possibly unifying aspect of the bill. I think it's kind of pathetic that we could only get $750 million for it. We sent $44 billion over to Ukraine. You know, this just shows you where Congress. Also, everybody's a deficit hawk whenever it comes to mental health spending.
Right,
apparently.
Ukraine that didn't need to be offset. That
Whatever.
was fine. Yeah.
So look, I wish there had been more there. I think the Republican base will revolt no matter what because of the red flag. I think John Cornyn's going to have some serious trouble, and that people are not going to forget whenever because he wants to replace Mitch McConnell.
When is he up for re-election?
I think he's up sometime in the next 2 years. No, he just won re-election. But the thing is about Cornyn is it's not that he's afraid of losing his seat. He wants to replace McConnell. He's been in Senate leadership for almost a decade now and is basically mounting the bid. It's like him and John Thune who are kind of dueling for who will be McConnell's successor. McConnell's like 80 years old. And so whenever he's out, they think that Cornyn wants to take his position. I do think that his position here on the gun bill will give him some trouble with the base. That being said, the base hated McConnell for years, and he's also still remained the leader. So I don't know how it's going to work out.
Do you know what Thune is doing on this?
John Thune voted against it. Actually.
He voted
so
against
there's he came out very strongly against it. So there is a divide in the Senate leadership. There McConnell and Cornyn supporting cloture for the bill, and then Thune kind of staking his position out. Frankly, with the majority of the GOP caucus, I think 37 of the Republican senators did vote against it. So there is a split, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little skeptical that this is gonna really hamstring the Republicans that vote for it, just because the provisions are so moderate and mild and relatively weak. On the other hand, I mean, the way that Trump framed it is if you were gonna make a big thing out of this, and this is what the NRA is very good at doing also, is saying like, even these things that if you pull them individually, the Republican base will overwhelmingly be like, yeah, I'm good with that. When you turn it into like, this is an attack on your Second Amendment rights without the specifics, then it makes it a much more potent issue. So we'll see how much they lean into this. I'm a little bit skeptical that this will ultimately, really be sort of devastating for Cornyn or any of the other ones.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily. In the interim, to me, it's just an interesting flashpoint. I'm like, I wonder if that's going to affect his leadership chances, like how the caucus and all of them are thinking about it. I don't know if people think of him as a traitor or if they are just like, okay, whatever, this is what John wants to do.
Yeah.
In order
well,
to
you
try
think
and
of,
solidify
I mean, Manchin running in West Virginia, back the Manchin Toomey, which went further than what this does, and still able to get reelected in West Virginia relatively easily. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
I think he will be fine getting elected in Texas. It's his national profile, which, I'm fascinated.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.